This is the Athlon Helos BTR, an LPVO with features specifically designed for service rifle competitions. But are those features useful to the average shooter? That's what we're going to find out on this episode. Let's start by unboxing this thing, but rather than bore you with tedious unpacking footage, let me just show you the contents of the box. This is the Athlon Helos BTR, and it is a 1 to 4.5, that's right, 4.5 power by 24 millimeter LPVO. It comes with these sort of old school bra style lens caps. I kind of wish these were see-through, but anyway. Overall, this is a nice looking LPVO. It has the features just in terms of up close that make it feel like a more premium build here. It has a 11-step illuminator with, well, unfortunately it does not have an off in between. There is an off between the one and the maximum and the minimum on here, and is powered by a 2032 coin battery. And here is an interesting feature you don't see on LPVOs very often, except for some really premium ones. It has a parallax focus, a side parallax focus, like a long-range scope. It goes from 10 yards out to infinity. The turrets look very much more like a long-range precision scope than an LPVO. They are resettable. They have a zero-stop lock built into them. And let's just take a listen to these turret clicks, and these are a quarter MOA per click. Very audible, very tactile positive. Perhaps not as loud as some of the other Athlon scopes I've tested, but pretty darn loud. And just a bit of noticeable slop. Might be just because of the... we'll take a look underneath the hood, so to speak, and take a look at that zero stop, but maybe that might be affecting it. And let's check a look at this windage. Again, audible and tactile positive. And pop off your turret. And interesting. Okay. So it appears that the zero stop is engaged there. Okay. So it's just a matter of how high you place the turret once you re-zero. And now there's no slop. There you go. Now let's take a look at the magnification ring. Oh, that's nice and smooth. Very smooth. And there is a bit of a nub here. I wouldn't call it a fin, but that gives you a bit more leverage to turn it. And this is the right amount of resistance, in my opinion. But again, that's kind of subjective. Oh, and this is butter smooth. Our ocular or diopter focus. All right. This is a nice looking LPVO. We're going to mount this up. I'll drop in a battery and we'll take it out and test it. Before we get into the test, I'd like to take a quick break here and talk about this episode's sponsor, Aura. You've seen the news with those massive security breaches at those big companies that have compromised mine and probably your data. And that's why it's important to have personal digital security. And that's why I use Aura. For the price of a typical VPN, not only getting VPN service, but I'm getting spam blockers, junk mail blockers. In fact, they're removing my name from those damn broker lists. And they offer a comprehensive suite of services, including fraud alerts, scam alerts, and credit monitoring. Try it out yourself for free. Go to aura.com/moondog and sign up for a 14-day free trial. No commitments. And you're helping support this channel. You know, identity fraud is a real thing, and with AI, it's all too easy to spoof your identity. That's why you should try out Aura. All right, let's get back to the tests. We're looking through the Athlon Helos BTR at its lowest power of 1 to get our best overall view through this LPVO. And I'm noticing a little bit of a brown tint overall, and just a little bit of edge distortion that some people call a fisheye effect. And you can see that here
in the telephone pole there on the right, it bends ever so slightly, especially when you get off the edge of the image. Now, you can compensate for that a little bit by adjusting your diopter, and yeah, that's not really helping much. It's probably better the other way. But then the reticle is not as in focus. So you're going to have to sort of just find your sweet spot and compromise. Now let's take a look at that hilltop there. I'm going to bring it up to halfway in its magnification range to 2 power and adjust that parallax to about 700 yards. And the overall view there, let me just adjust the exposure. Overall view is pretty good. Now let's bring this all the way up to 4.5 power and adjust that parallax to infinity. And let's just adjust that exposure again. And overall view is pretty good. And I can, even at 4.5 power, I can barely make out the trail marker sign, which is the top of the hill there, 1,400 yards away, which is an 8-foot tall pole with a 36-inch-ish steel sign, which is a good proxy for an IPSC target at this distance. And let's bring this to its lowest setting, which is 1, not really visible. Well, not with the naked eye. And this is maximum at 11, and that is visible. Let's see, in the sky, yeah, you can kind of see a red tint, but not really any additional illumination. And on this complicated sunlit background, that doesn't really help that much, but let's take a look at what that looks like at 1 power. And yeah, I think technically this would be just at the very edge of what I would consider to be daylight bright.
All right, we're looking through our Athlon Helos BTR at our reference target's downrange at 100 yards. Now let's bring up our magnification halfway to 2. And now all the way up to 4.5. Now let's check out our range of adjustments here, starting with our elevation. Pretty good, all the way to the top. Now all the way to the bottom. And let's bring this back to R0 on our turret. Now let's take a look at our windage. All the way to the right. Now let's take it all the way to the left. Pretty good range of adjustments here. Alright, there we go. All the way to the left. Let's bring this turret back to its 0 mark and see. Okay, so let's bring this up to 50 yards. Alright, we are at 50 yards now, and let's bring this up to its maximum of 4.5.
Now let's take a look at those reference targets. And the first thing I notice is chromatic aberration. You can see that as a purple fringe at the edge of the target frames, and that can negatively impact clarity. That said, at 4.5 power, the smallest horizontal and vertical lines I can make out in the Air Force Optical Resolution chart on the bottom right is element 2 in group -2. So that's the Athlon Helos BTR, and I'd like to thank Athlon for sending out this optic for me to test and evaluate, because this has an LPVO that with some unique features. Athlon specifically designed this for service rifle matches, and as the name implies, those are rifle matches where you use military service rifles or their civilian equivalents. And there's some unique rules to this particular match. One is the maximum magnification you can have in an optic is 4.5 power, hence why this has a 1 to 4.5 power range. And speaking of range, the minimum distance to your target in a service rifle match is 200 yards. And then you go into what they consider medium range, which is 600 yards, which is considerably further than most people shoot their rifle, service rifle or not, and certainly further than most people shoot an AR. But this has some unique features that are optimized for that. One is that its reticle has a fairly generous elevation ladder beneath your center circle and mini crosshair. Also, this has a parallax adjustment, which, as far as I know, is pretty unique for LPVOs. There's a couple of exotic LPVOs out there, like in the March or in the US Optic, that has a parallax focus. But I don't think there's any other one aside from this, certainly not in the sub $500 range, that has that feature. If there are, please let me know in the comments. Maybe there's some that I'm not aware of. But most other LPVOs that I've tested have a fixed parallax at 100 or 150 yards, which is fine for what people usually use them for. But if you've ever had to shoot at close distance, and I'm talking like 25 yards, if you ever look through an LPVO, the image is kind of blurry because the focus is fixed at 100 to 150 yards. And, you know, if you're shooting in your backyard, or, you know, in many cases, if you're hunting back east, or if you're competing in shorter range competitions like NRL 22, where some of the courses are at close as 10 yards, you want to have ability to focus in at something at 10 yards. And certainly if you're shooting a little dime-sized targets, spinner targets, you want to make sure that your point of impact is accurate. So having a adjustable parallax from 10 yards to infinity is a definite bonus. Now, it's not without its downsides, though. This particular optic is kind of not very bright in terms of the image through this, and it has a very unforgiving eye box. And the image through it is, well, it has some edge distortion. It's not the flattest LPVO out there, so those are kind of disappointing. But its other features, certainly the turrets, make this very appealing. I just wonder why they didn't offer this in a higher power option for those who aren't restricted to the 4.5 powers. They do make a 1 to 10 Helos, but it doesn't have these exposed turrets or this parallax focus. So I don't know why that's not an option, but it would be nice if they did. But if you are interested in picking up this optic, I'll include product links as well as more information in my full write-up at moondogindustries.com. Check out that article, use those links, and it helps support this channel. And of course, you can help support this channel by simply hitting the like button. It's so easy. Just takes a second to hit that like button. It's absolutely free. And you know, you're still watching this video, so probably you'll like it. And consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. Again, it's absolutely free. Just takes a second, and I appreciate you doing that. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. You be safe out there. Moondog, out.
Hey, I'd like to know what you thought of this video. Leave me a comment or chat with me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, MeWe, Instagram, or Locals. And if you want to see all of my videos, go to moondogindustries.com.